friends, welcome back to my kitchen. If you're new here, my name is Jen, and today I am going to take some of these garden fresh veggies that I have been piling up and turn it into a delicious cucumber and tomato salad. Now, if you're from the South, you are probably familiar with some variation of cucumbers and tomatoes and onions all together in a salad. But for this one, I'm going to be making my own Italian dressing and using that instead of the traditional vinegar. So to get started, you're going to need a medium onion. Now I say you can use any kind of onion you like. If you're using a white onion or yellow onion and that flavor profile is just a little too strong for you, you can soak your onion in cold water for a few minutes before you get going, and that will help take some of the bite out of the onion. This is also really good if you have red onion, or even green onions will work really well for this. So just slice it kind of thin and then just use your fingers to break it up a little bit. Now I'm using cucumbers that came from my garden and they're all various sizes. A little trick here, if your cucumber got a little big and it might be a little bitter, you can just cut the end of it and rub it like this and some of that bitterness will be drawn out. Now, the variety that I'm using is actually a pickling cucumber, but that just happened to be the first thing that came on strong in my garden. If seeds in your cucumber salad are going to bother you, you can scrape them out, or you can use a store-bought English cucumber variety. They have a very thin and delicate skin, and they don't have a ton of seeds. So for the larger cucumbers here, I'm just going to split them down the middle and slice them into half moons, fairly thin. You want everything in this, except for your tomatoes, to be cut fairly thin, and that will let this cucumber kind of absorb that delicious dressing that we're going to pour over it at the end. Now, as for amounts, that just depends on you and how many people you're feeding. I'd say one onion and one cucumber and a couple of tomatoes will be plenty, but since I had these cucumbers, I just went ahead and cut them all up. As you can see, one was really large and the rest of them were still pretty small, so it ended up working out. I am using 4 small-ish tomatoes. These are a Cherokee Purple variety that I grew this year in my garden, and they are such a beautiful tomato, and they have a wonderful kind of savory flavor. They're not terribly acidic, and that might be a variety you consider growing if you have tummy troubles or trouble processing, really acidic tomatoes in your digestive system. But these are really sweet, and as you can see, they're super juicy. So I just split them in half, and then I'm cutting just fairly thick slices, about 1/2 inch. And I'm going to do that until I have moved through all of my tomatoes and add them directly to the bowl with my cucumbers and my onions. Now, this next part is totally optional, but I had a ton of fresh basil in my garden. So I am going to be adding quite a bit of fresh basil to this. And if you wanted to make a different variation of this, you could leave out the Parmesan cheese that I'm going to be putting in the dressing, and you could put the little mini mozzarella balls in this with a little drizzle of balsamic vinegar, and it would be delicious. But I didn't have that today. I'm just gonna make the Italian dressing with the Parmesan, and I'm gonna let this basil bring a little brightness to this salad. I didn't end up using fresh herbs for the dressing, so I thought it would be nice to at least add a little bit of something fresh, since I did end up going with the dried herbs. So I'm just gonna roll these basil leaves up. I'm gonna cut them into little thin ribbons, and because these leaves are fairly big, once I get all the way to the end, I end up cutting once down the center as well. I do love basil, but nobody wants just one big giant bite of fresh basil. I'm going to go ahead and add that to the top there, and we're going to move on to this really yummy dressing. Now, in a little mason jar, I'm going to add a little bit of extra virgin olive oil, about 6 tablespoons or so. You'll see here I'm not really measuring, I'm just eyeballing it. But I will definitely leave all of the measurements for this dressing in the description box below, so you can just write it down or print it out if you would like to have this recipe for yourself. I'm also adding about 3/4 a tablespoon of some Dijon mustard, and you can use honey or maple syrup for this. I decided since I was running low on honey, I would just use the maple syrup. And I'm just going to add a splash or two of that. Maple syrup can be kind of overpowering, and we're not trying to really have the maple flavor come through on this. We're just adding a little sweetness to our dressing. Now, the next thing I'm going to add to this is some dried thyme, some dried oregano, and some dried parsley. Again, if you have all of these things fresh, you can absolutely use fresh herbs for this. You do not have to use dried. I'm going to add salt and pepper to taste. And then this is some lemon juice and also some vinegar. Now you can use apple cider vinegar, white wine vinegar, just whatever you have on hand. And then optionally, I'm adding about 3 tablespoons of Parmesan cheese. Yes, this is the stuff that comes out of the jar with the green lid. You do not have to use the expensive stuff for this. Then I'm going to crush 2 garlic cloves directly into this jar. If you don't have fresh garlic, feel free to use garlic powder. I am and always will be one of those people that says use what you have. You do not have to run out to the grocery store to buy something special. You can always improvise. And that is everything for this dressing. So I'm just going to pop a lid on this, give it a really, really good shake until everything is all combined and kind of creamy. And then we are going to finish off our salad. Always make sure that you taste your dressing before you pour it over your salad. It's much easier to taste it and decide if it needs more salt or pepper or a little more maple syrup than it is to just assume that it's okay, pour it on the salad, and then find out that it's missing something later. So I'm just going to pour this right over the top of this bowl with all of our beautiful cucumbers and tomatoes and our fresh basil and onion. And I'm going to give it a really good stir. Now you could serve this exactly like it is right now, but I happen to think that this salad is much better when it is ice cold and it has had, a few hours to sit in the refrigerator and let that dressing soak into all of your beautiful vegetables, and everything kind of softens a little bit from the salt and the onions kind of lose their sharpness. But you could 1000% serve this right away if you needed to. Now, if you've been here for a while, you already know that I'm a little bit of a weirdo and I can eat just this as a meal. But this makes a fantastic side dish to some grilled chicken or grilled pork chops. And it's also a really nice dish to bring if you are going to a barbecue or some kind of party. It's very summertime. So I really hope that you give this a try. And if you do, let me know what you thought of it. Until next time, friends, happy cooking.